Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. So I saw some posts on LinkedIn recently about dementia, and I thought, you know what, this is a topic that we should really delve into and get to understand far better. It's an issue that so many of us have had to deal with, and probably some of us will have to deal with in the future, personally ourselves, as well as with family members and other loved ones. And so I thought I'd check in with an expert on this topic. And I want to introduce you tonight to Nathan Posteraro, who is the National Manager of the Reflections Memory Care Program at Rivera, a large long-term care provider in the province. Nathan, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Brian. Thank you for having me.
So maybe just off the stop, maybe you could tell me how you got into this position and why is dementia a subject area that obviously interests you so much that you want to spend your career in it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually started in working with seniors when I was 15 years old. So I started in a retirement home, serving dinner, serving lunch. Never in my wildest dreams thought it would become a career of mine. Just wanted to start saving some money to go to school. So I ended up working at that retirement home for over 6 years. And then, throughout my time, worked my way up, started running activities and programs, really loved it, and figured, you know what, I'm just going to go to school for this. I love it so much. So I did social work for gerontology at Sheridan College, 2-year diploma program. Once I was finished there, I ended up working with the Alzheimer Society. It's a day program for individuals who do have dementia, Alzheimer's, that come for the day. We do programs, activities, we serve them lunch. Loved it so much. The first day I walked in there, I knew that this was something that I wanted to do for the rest of my life. Just being able to make these individuals smile or participate in an activity when their family members would say, Mom or Dad don't do anything at home. We can't get them to participate in anything. So that just immediately really sparked my passion for it. So that was right after I graduated college. I ended up doing a few roles in long-term care, retirement after that, as a recreation director. So organizing activities and going through all that. Throughout each role I had, I always found that there was a lack of programming, a lack of education, and just a lack of respect, I guess you can say, for our population living with dementia. Everyone was either, put into a secure space and kind of just immediately told to participate in every single activity that was on the calendar. There was no individual depth I found within, working with this population. So throughout my career, again, like I said, I've been in quite a few places. My last stint up before COVID began, I was a recreation director, moved into a sales position. So as a sales professional working in retirement living, again, the conversations coming in for family members, caregivers, we call them power of attorney at times, calling in and just asking, what can I do for my loved one? They have dementia. Mom or dad is leaving the house. I can't get mom or dad to get up in the morning to participate in anything. So my passion kind of worked through that in that sense. Understanding that these individuals really weren't educated on what dementia is or how to provide for their loved one. So calling in to start looking for a place for them, whether that be long-term care, retirement living, day program. Throughout my stint in sales, I kept being pulled back into that conversation of why isn't there more that we're doing for individuals with dementia? Why aren't there places more set up, for success for these individuals? So, as a sales professional, I kept going back to, am I in the right spot? Is there something better I could be better doing to help serve this population? So then I ended up getting this position with Rivera as the national manager for memory, the memory care program. So this program really pulls back that clinical aspect of what so many of us know is dementia care within retirement living.
So maybe
you have that. Yeah.
Maybe elevate for a second, if you could, and tell us what is dementia.
So dementia is what we call an umbrella term. So it's not a specific diagnosis per se. Dementia houses quite a few diagnoses under that umbrella. So For example, one of the most well-known is Alzheimer's disease. So Alzheimer's disease falls under the dementia umbrella term. Really, dementia is, a constant loss of memory, constant loss of language, problem solving, various thinking abilities that cause severe damage to the brain. Under that diagnosis, again, you'll have, let's say, Huntington's disease. You have your Alzheimer's disease, again, which is the most popular throughout older adults. You have, there's like over 2,000 diagnoses under dementia that fall under that umbrella.
And they all are something that impact memory. Is that
something that impact memory? So there's damage happening to the brain in certain aspects. So, for example, Alzheimer's disease, there's proteins that impact the brain, impact your way of daily living. So that one is the most easy to diagnose. There's quite a few tests that doctors can do to say, yes, this person does have Alzheimer's.
So lots of people just say, well, that's a senior's moment where it's more difficult to recall things as you age. Is that like dementia?
So it can be. So again, that's really where the stigma comes in with dementia. So, as you age, you're going to start forgetting things. That's just, the way of life. When it starts to become a worry is when that forgetfulness starts impacting your daily way of living. So let's say my grandmother, she's forgotten our names once in a while. She forget her names. She'll forget.
I forget names all the time.
Exactly. It happens all the time.
I've forgotten your name already. I forgot how to pronounce it at least.
Again, that's the way of living. So when it starts to impact your daily life. So let's say I put the stove on, I'm starting to cook something. I walk away. I completely forget I put on the stove. That's an impact of daily living because again, you have to worry about fire. I've forgotten to eat all of my meals during the day. I'm hungry. Now I'm just gonna, rummage through and eat something that's not appropriate. I want to go out for a walk. So I've left the door open. I've forgotten my keys. I've went out. I'm not dressed appropriately. And I've walked down the street. I forget where I live. So now I'm lost. So, all of these things that are starting to impact your way of daily living. I forget how to get dressed. I forget to take my medication, that I need to take. So when family members or individuals start seeing these patterns, that's when you would want to get a doctor involved.
Right.
The doctor is not going to be able to say you have dementia. Really, in reality, when someone passes away, that's when they're able to scan and go through the brain and say this person.
So really, there's not a way other than looking at the memory loss and how it impacts their lives to diagnose
way
dementia.
Of daily living. Exactly. Yeah.
We're chatting tonight with Nathan Posteraro, who is the national manager of the Reflections Memory Care Program at Revera. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back more with Nathan in just 2 minutes. Stay with us. It's interesting that, so many of our senior population have some form of dementia. And it's something that we really need to understand better as more and more baby boomers age. And we're going to have far more people in that age group and probably encounter a lot more of the challenges. And one of the things I want to ask Nathan about is what we can do, if anything, to forestall the onset of Alzheimer's or dementia. My mom is 90 years old, and she's got this line that I love, Nathan. She says, "You don't stop playing bridge when you get old. You get old when you stop playing bridge." And so I guess the idea being that you got to keep active and you got to keep thinking, you got to keep social. Anyway, we're gonna take a break. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Everybody, stay with us. Well, welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. We're chatting tonight with Nathan Posteraro, who is the national manager of the Reflections Memory Care Program at Revera. And we've been talking about dementia, which is interesting. It's become something that has become his passion, something he started when he was just a teenager working in a seniors facility serving meals. And now he is the national manager of a memory care program at a major long-term care provider. Again, Nathan, I wonder if we could step back. A lot of us don't understand the different parts of long-term care. I think there's something called assisted living and memory care and individual living. Sort of break that down for us, if we could, so we can understand the different types of retirement housing.
Yeah, so there's quite a few options. So like you said, you have your long-term care, which most of the time is government section. So you have government funding in order to allow individuals to live within long-term care. A lot of needs that individuals can't complete on their own. they go into long-term care to get support with. Within long-term care, you also have retirement living, which usually houses, individuals who are quite independent, all the way up to assisted living, like you spoke about, which again is kind of mirror option as long-term care, a little bit more independent. And then you have your memory care as well. So let's say across Canada, you have quite a few providers which are government run, and then you have a lot of private sector. Your private sector long-term care is usually run by individuals running big corporations, I guess we can say. The difference between your private and your government funded, again, is always going to be that financial aspect. So with government funded long-term care, you do get quite a bit more support from the government in order to obviously afford, the daily living there. In private sector, which I work for, mainly retirement, again, it's going to be quite a bit more of an expensive option. Services can be a little bit different. And again, it's depending on again, the corporation you work for, the company you work for. Each one will be individually based. Within private, again, we do operate long-term care, retirement living, assisted living, memory care as well. So there's quite a few options. Really, the idea is when you're in need of long-term care, it's usually an individual who cannot be supported at home, or an individual who's in hospital that can't return home. So they are usually geared more towards long-term care. Within Canada, long-term care waitlists are, I'm sure you've heard, are quite exceptional. It's usually 5 to 7 years for long-term care waitlists to get on a list. There are, sometimes that an individual does need, immediate requirement for long-term care, so they can go on a specialized list where they can, find that support right away. When you're looking for long-term care, you always want to have a few options, again, because your list is going to be quite big. So let's say you pick your top 5 choices, within those top 5 choices, whether or not you get them, it'll be quite a mixed bag, just depending on that wait list again. In retirement living, it's a little bit of a different option there. Retirement living, usually you can move in, I can call up a place and say, do you have availability for your memory care neighborhoods? Most of the time you will get the option to move in right away if needed. And if, that option is not available for your number one home, usually within that company you're looking for, they'll have, options A, B, C, D, and the list can go on.
And do people typically want to go to a home that's close to where they live, or close to where their relatives are, or in Florida, or what?
Florida for sure. Number one option. Usually where relatives are close by, because again, you want family to come visit. Maybe I'm going to have my mom move into retirement living closer to me because I want to do her laundry. I want to bring her some meals at times, or I just want to go over for a visit. So a lot of the times we see, parents of loved ones that are moving from a city far away from them to be closer in those spaces.
This is probably slightly sexist, but I had someone tell me that the location for most of the seniors to be located in long-term care was close to their oldest daughter.
I mean, I've seen that, absolutely. Again, it depends on your family situation. A lot of the times we'll get calls that say, I'm caring for my mom, I would like her to be closer. Again, it can be son, daughter, granddaughter, grandson, a loved one. It's really dependent on the situation.
What causes dementia?
That's a good question. There is so many possible factors that cause dementia. We're seeing a lot of individuals who have played contact sports, who have suffered a lot of concussions, start to fall under these diagnoses. That happens quite often.
Really? So concussion can cause dementia?
Absolutely, yeah.
Repeated
it affects
concussion.
the brain. Yeah, it affects the brain quite a bit. So there's a lot of studies that show football players or soccer players, lacrosse, like a lot of people who have done contact sports, can often go down this path. It's not to say everyone's going to happen that way. Again, dementia is such a wide, vast term. There's so many things still being studied about it.
Muhammad Ali had Parkinson's. Is there a connection between Parkinson's and dementia?
We also have a term called mixed dementia. So an individual can have, let's say, Huntington's disease, but also suffer with Alzheimer's disease. There's quite a mixed bag there. So again, really up until the person unfortunately could pass away is when they would do that full study of the brain and diagnose that.
Right. Okay. So what separates sort of, if there's such a word, as sort of mild dementia or regular dementia versus Alzheimer's?
Really, again, that would fall under the umbrella term. So you could start with, a very mild form of Alzheimer's. Again, you could be forgetting to turn off the stove, forgetting to take your pills. Most often, when someone is diagnosed with a form of dementia, they will progress. It could be at a slow progression. It could be at a fast progression, really dependent on the person. Sometimes it's also dependent on the environment that the individual is in. So for example, my program I oversee in retirement living, our focus is on the individual, their likes, their interests, what they did for a living. We're trying to give routine. So oftentimes routine allows that individual to succeed throughout the day. So if I'm going to, for example, I'm going to help Mrs. Smith in the morning, she's going to get up. She used to make her bed, get herself ready and then make breakfast. So in our program now, that's what we're trying to do, is we're allowing these individuals to continue living that purposeful life. So, our care team members are assisting with our individuals to make their bed. Even if they can't do it, they're going to help support in a way that they can almost complete that task. So we can't say for everyone it's going to elongate that process. Again, each person is an individual throughout their diagnosis, but we have seen a lot of success in, that routine-based practice of person-centered care.
Now, what about my mom's comment about playing bridge? Is there something to continuing to be intellectually challenged that somehow forestalls the onset of dementia?
There's quite a few studies surrounding that. Doctors, everyone kind of going into the study, continuing to do activities you've done throughout your life or continuing to stay active, especially physical exercise. Again, it promotes that progress in the brain. So you're constantly keeping active there.
So physical, not necessarily mental.
Physical is a big one. Mental, so, you have your word searches, you have reading, things like that, again, really help contain that focus within your mental functioning throughout the day. So again, we've seen quite a few progress with that. Again, we can't say it's going to slow it or stall it, but there has been quite a few successes with continuing to do that.
Is a dementia diagnosis sort of the end? You can't get better?
No, absolutely not. So that's where a lot of the stigma comes from, is someone receives a dementia diagnosis, whether it be with Alzheimer's, Lewy bodies, whatnot. And then so often not, it's, okay, my life is over. I can't continue on. I have no purpose anymore. And that's what I'm really trying to push within my role, within my education with my teams. Once you receive a dementia diagnosis, it's a diagnosis, but you're still that individual you were before getting your diagnosis. Now we just have to focus more on how we can, provide a way of living that will support you in your journey as you go through your progression. So again, whether that be implementing certain routines within our retirement homes, we do something called wayfinding. So if an individual maybe forgets what room number they're in, we have signage that can help support to allow you to find your room, to allow you to find the washroom. There's ways to support and ways to help, start a new journey. And that's what I like to promote, is you have the stigma of dementia, but in our supports, we're providing you a new journey and a new purpose in your life.
So there was a movie about Margaret Thatcher. I'm not sure if you ever saw it, but Margaret Thatcher, I guess, had dementia or Alzheimer's. I'm not sure which. And she thought she was still the prime minister of the UK. And there was a argument between her husband and one of her offspring, where the offspring wanted to make sure that she knew that she was no longer. They wanted to tell her that, what reality was, and to force her to exist in reality. Yeah. And the husband almost humored her and said, if she wants to think she's still prime minister, let her think she's still prime minister. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. I'm all on board with the husband. Someone living with dementia, again, they're in their reality. It's very hard for them to be taken from that reality to be put into ours. So often not, when we're doing education with our teams, like PSWs, recreation, executive directors, whoever it may be, with dementia, we live in their home. We work in their home and we live in their reality. so often, 99% of the time, you may have individuals saying, where's my husband? My husband was supposed to be home. Where's my wife? My wife isn't here. If you take them out of that reality, then starts what we call personal expressions or responsive behaviors. Taking that person out of the reality. Now I'm all of a sudden giving them this information that, no, your husband's dead. Why would you be asking for him? It's like waking up and just finding out that your husband's passed away, even though maybe he's been gone for 20 years. So it is better to live in this person's reality. It's not going to harm them to say, you know what, he just went to the bus. You know what, he went to the grocery store. He'll be back. And then we create an ulterior, journey there. So why don't you come with me and we'll grab a coffee while we're waiting? 99% of the time that conversation is going to end up going away from them, and then we're focused on the next aspect. So feeding these, I hate calling it white lies, but feeding them these little tidbits that will help their day, rather than giving them this insane blow of your husband's dead. What? I didn't know he died. Why didn't I go to the funeral? It can create a ripple effect. So it's just better to live in that reality.
Another movie was The Notebook, and the husband had to read every day, or quite frequently, the whole life story to the wife with again dementia or Alzheimer's, to get her to remember that they were married. So was that the opposite? So she wasn't living in her reality; she was living back into their old reality. What was that? What do you think of that?
Yeah, for that one, in a sense, he wasn't actually telling her that she was that person. So in the movie, he's reading this novel in hopes that she'll click with some of the memories that he was portraying. So there was one part in that movie where she said, "I remember now." 99% of the chance of the time, again, that may not happen. But things like reminding people of a name, or a job that they did. We do have spared memories with dementia as well. So a lot of the times we call it first in, last out. So way back when, as a child, I used to ride my bike with my friends and blah blah blah. Or up until early 20s, maybe I met my wife or my husband. We got married quite early. So that's when, again, people go back and say, what do you mean my husband's dead? We just got married, that kind of thing. So again, relating to those memories that remain.
That's interesting. First in, last out. I've been in seniors' homes where people that have terrible memories know every lyric to a song and can sing along. So there's something.
Music is one of the most spared abilities, because we learn music from children's age, right? So usually those memories stay with us. I had an individual in one of our homes who was a piano teacher from a very, very young age. Hadn't played the piano in quite a few years, living at home. Ended up moving into one of our neighborhoods, and the piano was there and available. Didn't know how to self-start. So again, self-starting becomes less and less with dementia. So we had a care team member who actually sat at the piano and started playing it while she was around. The individual would come over and sit beside her, listen to the music. She was nonverbal, but you could tell she was very interested in the music. Then this care team member very gently would take the individual's hands, place them on the keys, and just run them over. All of a sudden, she started playing the piano by memory.
Really? Just needed that little
no lyrics
going.
Just needed that self-starting. And that's, again, where our education for our PSWs, everyone that works within our neighborhoods or who is involved in this care, are on board with education. We do a very specific training program called Dementiability. That's where you'll see my name tag from. Very focused on the spared abilities of this disease and how to allow individuals to create purpose and meaning in their environments.
Nathan Posteraro is our guest today. He's the national manager of the Reflections Memory Care Program at Rivera. We're going to take a break for some messages and be back more with Nathan in just 2 minutes. Stay with us, everybody. Welcome back, everybody, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. We're chatting tonight with Nathan Posteraro, who is the national manager of the Reflections Memory Care Program at Rivera. We're talking about dementia, what it is, how do you get it, and what do you do when you or a loved one has it. Nathan, I'm intrigued by the name, the title that you've got, Reflections Memory Care. Why Reflections Memory Care? You're trying to induce reflections?
Yeah, so that's the name of our memory care program that we're working with. Again, focusing on that individual, their purpose, who they were prior to the diagnosis. So again, trying to remove that stigma of a dementia diagnosis is the end of life. Now we're again bringing back new meaning and purpose to their journey that they're on now.
So is this how your program stands out from others?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the times, memory care across the board, very standard. You have your secure locked unit. You have your monthly calendar of programs. Very, very standard on how individuals participate. Within our program, we're trying to promote a holistic way of living, person-centered care, removing that very clinical aspect of what most memory care would look like. The focus being on, educating, working as a multi-approach team. So that includes every single team member working within the homes, and then very, very focused on family members. So our biggest connection is our family members, how we connect with them, how we involve them, how we deliver education to them as well. And then throughout the whole process. So we're not just starting from move-in, we're starting from what we call a prospect journey with our sales teams. As someone would call in and get information, we're starting that journey with them there up until end stages of life if possible.
If you have a loved one with dementia, is a facility like yours the only solution, or can you deal with someone with dementia at home?
There is so many opportunities to provide, success, promote wellness and whatnot. It's not just retirement living. So you have opportunity to do day programs with, within the community you may live in. That could be the Alzheimer Society. It could be one of the regions you live within. So day program, you would drop your individual off. They would be there throughout the day. They would entertain your loved one in activities. They would give them a meal, promote wellness. Again, you have long-term care. Really, that's looking more end stages of life, end stages of dementia. I mean, opportunities could be present there as well. Retirement living like us, memory care, neighborhoods, promote wellness, success within a safe environment. Then you also have home care supports as well. So, if you can, provide that support with your loved one at home, maybe we'll bring in a PSW to help support, getting changed or using the washroom, giving medication, whatnot. You have home meal delivery services, so you can have meals delivered for your loved one as well. There's endless opportunities. It's really going to depend on either the loved one supporting that person or what best would support that individual.
I would have thought if you're losing your memory, actually staying in your original environment at your house would be really helpful because you know where everything is. You've been doing it. As you said, routine is critical.
Yeah.
Isn't that really part of, probably the best situation if we can have a PSW visit and help, but stay in your house?
That would be the greatest opportunity. Brian, within that, I mean, it can spell disaster for some people. A lot of the times these individuals who may have a diagnosis cannot stay on their own. It's just not safe. So even in their own home, it could be a disaster. Let's say we leave the stove on or the water running or things like that. You have a PSW that does come in to support. Usually they would only come in for a few hours space throughout the day. If you're living with a loved one, maybe they have to go to work. They can't stay with you at all times. As the disease progresses, it is more safe to live within a more secure environment that we have 24-hour nursing care, 24-hour PSW support, meals delivered as well. In our environments, again, that's where we're taking it back to the holistic approach, providing environments that look and feel like home. So it's not that hospital type setting, I used to sit on a couch like that, or I had an artwork like that in my home. Again, knowing the person setting up their room as they would have set it up at home with photos, blankets, things that would make them feel like home, and then starting that routine as they move in and continuing on with that.
So let's go back before you have to go into a home, and maybe it's early onset or something like that of dementia. Are there strategies that you can use? My comment about bridge or Wordle, Sudoku. What are the things that you would recommend people, suggest to their loved ones?
Yeah, again, I would stay active as much as possible, whether that be physical activity, brain activity. Being around loved ones, if you do have that support, that's a great one as well. Intergenerational program is huge. If these loved ones have grandkids, that again helps them, stay active, stay mentally aware as well. Music, again, we touch base on music. If you can, if you were a musician or if you have musical supports, continue with that music on a daily basis. Again, music of interest, it'll allow you to continue singing those lyrics. Again, it brings back those memories and helps you support that. Mental activity, really that brain stimulation. You want to do word searches, you want to, read books, you want to be involved in that. So, throughout the diagnosis, most of the time you will not lose the ability to read. There's so many opportunities to provide audiobooks. There's opportunities, to read out loud or, blow up books so we can continue reading or do 2 sentences per page. I mean, there's endless opportunities of what we can do to start doing that. I know my grandmother lives in a retirement home, an independent living. And, she's noticed her memory is starting to wean away. She's very aware of it. She'll make mention of it. So, I'm trying to input things for her to do. So I'll make her write down what she's done throughout the day so she can read that out to me later on, a conversation on the phone. Or what did she eat that day? Write it down as soon as you eat it. It's kept in a notebook. She knows where to find it. Her name is labeled on it. It's not going to stop the progression, but at least she'll be able to go back and say, oh, you know what? I did eat today. Or, you know what? I forgot to eat breakfast. I didn't write it down. So little things like that really help to support that.
What are we going to do as the baby boom ages? And we're going to have so many more people that are going to be in need of long-term care, dementia care, memory care, etc. What are we going to do as a society?
There's a lot of work we need to do. Funding is going to be a big one, whether that be for long-term care, retirement day programs, in-home care. A lot of our organizations are working really hard on strategies and presenting that to government for funding. I know the Alzheimer Society is working really, really hard on education, getting, more funding for that, more certifications, more trainings. There's endless ones for dementia and Alzheimer's and all that care that we can do as well. But really, it's going to come down to funding and government support.
If someone's worried about a loved one having dementia, what resources are available? What are the first steps that you would recommend people pursue?
Yeah, first step, I would say speak with your doctor. That's going to be your first step to go to. They can start that process of, they can start doing some little mini tests that can help diagnose or, look into cognitive impairments. A lot of times people are afraid to say anything. Again, stigma. It's the stigma around aging and forgetting. But with communication, with education, it's a great resource. So start with your doctor and then reach out to organizations like the Alzheimer's Society or your local retirement homes. They have the information. They can guide you. Maybe you're not going to move into a retirement home right away, but at least they can guide you to some supportive services as well.
So I think someone associated with your board of directors or something is Hazel McCallion, the former mayor of Mississauga. She's 101 years old.
Yes, she
interviewed
is.
her recently. She's as sharp as she's ever been.
Yeah.
What's the secret? What's the secret to being sharp at 101?
I wish I had the secret sauce. I would give it to everyone I know. But I think it comes down to continuing to do, what you love to do. Hazel is still working, really. Like she's, dropping into these retirement homes, giving her opinions, so continuing to stay sharp and focused really depends on the individual. Half of the time I've seen a lot of our individuals just give up. Again, and it's where that stigma comes from. It's I'm forgetting things, I'm going to die, or I'm forgetting things, I need to be locked away. We need to erase that. We need to help support individuals with memory impairments. And Hazel's a great example of that. She continues to do everything she loves every single day. And if she's not able to access that, she'll find a way to do it or ask for support or help.
So there's got to be something in this staying active. And I had mentioned to you the bridge line. The other line I heard is you don't stop dancing when you get old when you stop dancing. So whether it's physical activity or mental activity, it really seems to me that that's the key. And I guess the other thing that my mom has said about bridge versus Sudoku or Wordle or something like that is that the social interaction is
That's
really
right,
key. Yeah. And in bridge, not only do you demand something of your intellectual capacity, but different things are happening. And actually, she made an interesting comment. She said it's actually really helpful once in a while to play with someone that's not that good, because then you've really got to struggle through it, and it's challenging, and that's kind of fun for your brain to keep active. If you played with the same people all the time, you sort of know how they're going to bid, you know how they're going to play, and it's
exactly
not as
it becomes stagnant almost, right? Like that's a lot of the times we see in standard memory care across the board is programs that are being offered. It's not for every single person, it's geared towards the larger group. So if I don't have any interest in, let's say, doing a music program, I was never interested in music, but I'm being invited to do that, I'm not going to find any purpose in that, right? So again, it's knowing that individual, knowing their likes, and incorporating that into daily living. So now I'm going to do smaller group programs with people that also are interested, but maybe at different levels. So let's say in one of our neighborhoods, Mrs. Smith is phenomenal at bridge, and then you have Mr. Smith, who is terrible at bridge, but he enjoys playing. So Mrs. Smith is going to give him some pointers. Now she feels like, oh, I succeeded because I assisted someone else. So again, it's that staying sharp, staying focused, but in that social setting, it provides so many more opportunities for success.
I went to one session talking about dementia, and the physician said that you got to start thinking about it before it happens, comparable to a heart or a lung. You can't start exercising when you're already had a heart attack. You could, but it doesn't do nearly as much good. You got to start exercising before you have a heart attack. So you got to start exercising the brain before you end up becoming too old. So I guess some of these things that you're talking about are things that we got to start now.
Yeah. Everyone I know, I say, get up, do some form of activity, whether that be going for a walk with your dog, going out and hanging out with your friends, but you're being active in that sense for your brain or whatnot. Eating well. Sugar, I'm not going to go into the whole dietary thing, but sugar has also been, a known form of impact for memory and cognitive impairment as well. So just being aware of what you're putting in your
body. So sugar's bad.
Sugar's bad. Sugar's terrible. Processed sugar is terrible for you. I mean, the sugars from fruits, great. You want that, but you're eating your processed sugar like chocolates and all that stuff. It's going to impact your health. It's going to impact your brain, all of that stuff. So being mindful of what you're putting into your body. Absolutely.
It's got to be scary and really heartbreaking when people forget their loved ones. Tell me, how do you deal with that? And then you're probably counseling the loved one more than the person that has the dementia, but they must be devastated that their mom or their grandmother forgot who they are.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the biggest things we end up doing is counseling of family members, because again, they're not educated really whatsoever on this disease and the outcomes of it. One thing I always mention to my teams, one thing I always mention to individuals I speak with about dementia is just remember, you meet one individual with dementia, you meet one individual with dementia. No two individuals will have the same diagnosis or have the same outcome. So you could have a loved one moving in and their family member is like, mom doesn't remember me. They may not remember the name, but they're always going to remember how you made them feel. That's one thing that will stay. So if you've had a great relationship with your parent, most likely you're going to still continue having that. Names, again, first in, last out. Maybe you didn't have a child till later in life. You won't remember, that individual's name or who really they are, or remember even having a kid, but they're always going to remember how you made them feel. So again, you have that great relationship. You give them that, life. You give them the life back, really, from the diagnosis. You give them that time, whether they're talking about a loved one that you've never heard of, or talking about experience you knew they never accomplished, or a job or whatnot. Living in that reality, giving them that sense of meaning, that purpose, allowing them to be vocal, or maybe if they aren't vocal, but sense of touch as well is really big. There's so many little things we can start incorporating, and that's what we start educating our families on from the first conversation. And I always speak to those 2 points, is always remembering how you made them feel. And you meet one person, you meet one person. So from the start of the journey right up until the end, whether or not a family member is like, yes, I absolutely buy into it, I know what you're trying to give us, or if they don't, and maybe it doesn't work out for them, but we are seeing either progress or success, or this individual just living a more purposeful life, they always come to us and say, I understand that part of it. So that's a really big piece.
How do you deal with a spouse when they've forgotten their spouse?
Really, again, the same type of thing. So whether or not it's a spouse coming in to visit, we have quite a few, residents within our homes that, let's say a wife will end up having a diagnosis. She'll move into our neighborhood. Husband will move into our independent more living, comes down to visit, doesn't remember who he is. Again, giving him that support, that education, remembering how to make you feel. Let's participate in an activity. Whether or not the wife will remember him or not, she's going to see this man here and will support in that way. I mean, again, every individual is different, so they may remember, they may not, but just being there to support on that journey.
Do you think this is something that is far more prevalent in our society today because we're just staying healthy longer and growing older more?
It does and it doesn't. Like you mentioned earlier, the baby boom spike, that's absolutely going to make a huge impact. That's why we're, strategies throughout the communities and resources are going to start changing, being more implemented. But I mean, a lot of our population is more aware, of what they're putting in their bodies, of physical activity, keeping cognitively aware. So those things are being put into play. I mean, whether or not that's going to make an impact down the road, I guess we just have to kind of wait and see how that boom populates.
We're chatting tonight about dementia, and it's an issue that I think a lot of us have dealt with either personally and or certainly with people we know, loved ones or friends of loved ones. And it's, I think, going to be an issue that's going to grow in the future with the baby boom aging and a lot of us living healthier lives longer, medical science keeping us alive longer. But then obviously some of us are going to end up having this challenge. And I do agree with Nathan and my mom, who I've mentioned a couple of times, who talk about keeping physically active, socially active, and intellectually active into their, until the end of their life. And also this idea about starting a lot of those things now before you become a senior, and so therefore hopefully forestalling the onset of any of these memory challenges. We're going to take a break for some final messages and come back with some concluding comments in just a minute. Stay with us, everyone. We're going to be back in 2 minutes. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. Having an interesting, difficult at times, because I think we're all sort of aware of dementia and Alzheimer's, but a really helpful conversation with Nathan Posteraro, who is the national manager of the Reflections Memory Care at Rivera, and we've been discussing the importance of number one, erasing the stigma of dementia, but also then bringing life back to memory care in our later years, and thinking about how we deal with that. Maybe Nathan, just to finish up, let me ask you about two difficult questions, if I could. How do you deal with violence? Because I've heard so many stories about people get frustrated when they lost their memory, and violence and anger is an issue. And then what about sex? Did people have sex in memory care units? Do you allow that? What goes on?
Yeah. So to your first point, 99% of the time, the reason that an individual may be striking out or communicating loudly is because they can't communicate the needs that they actually have and want to communicate. It just does not come across in their brain. So a lot of the times our individuals are wrongly mislabeled with things like aggression or wandering, or violence. It does happen. A lot of the times we educate our staff on what unmet needs may look like for that individual. Again, it's knowing the person, knowing what they did, how they communicated, really helps us kind of jump in before those negative labels do come out. So let's say we have an individual who may be striking out, whenever a staff member comes near them. We can backtrack that and say, you know what, this individual needs support going to the washroom. Maybe prior to seeing this, personal expression start to come about, let's start utilizing the washroom a little bit earlier in the day, and then we can see that responsive behavior start to diminish.
Right.
Again, it doesn't
Figuring out
work
what the
for
triggers
every
are
person.
and anticipating those
Exactly.
triggers and getting in there more quickly. Okay, what
Exactly.
about this other issue about do people still want to have sex in a memory care unit, and if so, what do you do?
Of course. I mean, when it comes down to it, a person has their needs, their physical needs. That really doesn't diminish. I mean, as you age, it does diminish, but there's still opportunities for these individuals to have those feelings. Again, that's something we are very open and communicative with family members. So oftentimes you do see individuals coming in, they forget they've had a spouse, they still have a spouse, and they often find attraction to another individual within these neighborhoods. We see relationships start to build. Again, we have to communicate with families right away. We involve our whole team. Whether or not families are going to be supportive of that relationship is going to be dependent per family member. We cannot say that this person cannot have these interactions because, again, it's an unmet need that they're trying to find. So we can't say, oh, but your wife is here, because, again, to them, maybe I don't have a spouse. Maybe I haven't got married, my wife is dead, and possibilities could be endless. So, I mean, it does happen, absolutely. Really, it's going to come down to the family support. This is more within retirement living. So, again, communicating to families. If families are okay with that relationship building, we just monitor often, obviously for safety, just ensuring that both parties are aware of what's going on. And if it happens, then we continue to monitor that and keep both individuals safe. We often get our doctors involved as well, just to ensure safety and well-being per person. And then again, it's very focused on the cognitive aspect too. So if someone can communicate that they want this to happen, then we would absolutely try to redirect both individuals or put in more support.
If you've got dementia, how do you provide consent?
That's the thing too. So I mean, verbally, whether or not someone can speak to it. If you're nonverbal, we check in with the signs. So, you want to look at body language. Is someone open to these things happening? We're very, very closely monitoring these individuals. If we see body language like no, then we obviously try to redirect. So again, it's dependent per situation.
Nathan, I got to tell you, it's a real pleasure meeting you because, I guess we hear these stories about some people that, may not care about the people that are under their care, and you obviously do, and you've got a lot of empathy, a lot of understanding, a lot of intelligence, and a lot of care, for passion for your job and for the people that you're taking care of, and so I appreciate that. Really, thank you for sharing your own personal story with us tonight, and also how you think that we need to care for our loved ones and the people we know that have got dementia. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
That's our show for today, everybody. We've been joined by Nathan Posteraro, who is the national manager of dementia care, effectively at Rivera, and he's been wonderful in sharing a lot of strategies for us to deal with. I like this comment about not taking people out of their reality, allowing them to exist in their own reality. I think that the comments in regards to intellectual stimulation, physical stimulation, social stimulation are really helpful. I think that the comments about staying at home routine, and then when you're in a memory care unit, still having some routine and having some memories of home are really really helpful. And, obviously, whenever faced with the decision for ourselves or for a loved one and where to go, finding that place where people really do care, the way that Nathan has described his care, I think is key, because, I don't want to end up in a place where people don't give a darn about me. I want people to be cognizant of who I was and who I am, and my own personal needs. Anyway, that's our show for tonight. Thanks for joining us. I remind you, I'm on every Monday through Friday on 960 AM. You can stream me online at www.saga960am.ca. All my podcasts and videocasts are available on briancrombie.com, on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube, and on Speakeasy, Apple, and Audible podcasts. Good night, everybody. Have a great day.